Now, I will tell you this. 80% of all your problems can be solved with money. 80% of anyone's problems can be solved with money. But I also want you to understand that an increase in cash flow does not solve your problems. Solving your problems increase your cash flow. Welcome to another episode of Classes in Session. I am your host, Professor Devin Robinson. This episode is being brought to you by Urban Business Institute, the Ivy League for urban entrepreneurs. We are going to continue on our relationship series, where today we're going to be talking about relationship in business, primarily friends and family. Now, your decision to go into business is very, very important. Many people go into business, and instead of going into business, they're going into business. See, many of us pray about it, but don't stay about it. Meaning, we want to depend on God. Meanwhile, God is dependent on us. He puts the opportunities in our place, in our faces, in our grasp, within our reach. And then we just keep praying and sit back expecting Him to make these things come to life. The thing about business is, it is a transformative experience. Now, I'm speaking to the people like myself who were born into humble beginnings. Those of us that were not born with a silver spoon in our mouth, those of us who were not born with a spoon at all, had to find a way to transition into successful entrepreneurship. An entrepreneurship business, we're going to talk about the difference. But us moving into those spaces require not only focus inwardly, but it also affects the things that are outwardly. And today I'm going to talk about those 10 key things. Now, what I'm going to attempt to do is make this conversation balanced, meaning we're going to look at both sides of it, right? Because after all, you're the one that decided to change, not your friends and family. So why should you blame your friends and family for them trying to stay the same and keep you the same while you're the one trying to change? But then the flip side to that is, if you really have friends and family and not just entitled, we'll talk about family entitled as well, they should be supporting your transition. So we have both arguments on both sides, right? And then we have this thing in the middle called a business. So I'm going to talk to you about 10 key things that you should pay attention to, be aware of, and consider in your journey to and your practice in entrepreneurship. If it's one thing that I do not want associated with myself as what I do, and now let me just tell you something. I'm not the guy that loves to be out there tooting horns, shining lights on myself. That's not really me. I'm the guy that likes to get things done for real, like really get it done, right? So I'm like what Tupac said, you know, get the money and blank the fame. Like, that's kind of how I operate. But when I do this work that I've been doing for almost 20 years, it's one thing I don't want associated with me is theory, gimmick, or superficial. I'm not the person that's gonna just talk and give the nice textbook definition of things and tell people all you got to do is have a SWOT analysis. All you got to do is know your break-even point. All you got to understand is a P&L statement, how to read it, how to produce one, and then you'll be successful in business, because that's totally not true. That's theory. That's one thing, and then you actually have to go out and do the practical. And then, of course, the gimmicks. You know, people do a whole lot of slick marketing gimmicks. They tell you, you know, attend this one weekend. Let me tell you something. A weekend of anything is not going to get you anything. I don't care what it is. A vacation for a weekend will not give you the R&R you need. A conference for a weekend will not give you the transformation experience that you need. It is more of a journey when you're talking about going from one place to the next. Like, it's not a time machine. Like, you just don't jump into something and then come out and you're perfect and you're ready to go. You know, when they talk about doctors, dentists, vets, those types of things, they have a practice, a medical practice. It's because they never perfect anything. They're practicing. They're constantly on the journey to getting better and better and better. And that's what business actually is. It's a practice. You're practicing getting better and better and better. So don't buy into the gimmicks of, you know, once you do this, it'll all come to life. It'll all come to perfection. That's what I'm going to be talking about with these, you know, 10 different items I want to talk to you about as well. And then, of course, the superficial. Those people who are not doing it or have done it for real, they can only stay on the surface. Someone who can't swim cannot go touch the buoy. They can only touch the sand. So they're only wading in the shallow parts of the ocean. They can't get out there because they never learned how to swim. That's the superficial. Those are the people that would give you, they go out, yeah, they write books. Those are people writing books and going on stages and saying a whole lot of things to you. And you as an entrepreneur, because you've never swam before, it looks like they're swimming. Meanwhile, they're in the shallow part of the ocean, from waist up making it look like they're swimming, but from waist down they're walking on the shore of the bottom of the ocean. You got to understand what's also superficial. So let's kind of really get straight into it. So the first thing that you really want to consider and think about and understand when it comes to relationships and business is you will inherit problems. Now, what does that mean? You go into business, the idea of a business is when you tell people, right? This is, again, for those that don't really have the understanding of business. Once people hear, oh, you have your own business, you can run around, print those business cards from Vistaprint and say, I shouldn't even said that because they did not sponsor this show. But anyway, that's a freebie, Mr. Vistaprint. But you get your business cards from there. You could put any old title on it that you want. President, CEO, founder, magician. You can put anything you want on that business card. That does not mean that you're that thing. But in the minds of many people, they think that once you have a business, you've arrived. You've made it. So then the people around you, again, they're going to think that you have this thing that can solve their problems. So then you inherit the problems of those around you just because you transition into business. Many people don't understand that not because you got your EIN and you got your articles or, you know, your partnerships and you got all this stuff. Most businesses, I'll just tell you, and only 3% of businesses earn more than $100,000 per year. Only 3% of American businesses earn over $100,000 in revenue per year. So you may have some people that may be getting a little bit of money. They may be doing it on the weekends. They may be moonlighting. They're doing a whole lot of different things in our community. And they're happy with that. And I applaud them. But what we should be doing is going a lot further, right? We should be employing people and building and having the solid businesses, brick and mortars, you know, all that stuff to go to the next level. But it just doesn't happen overnight. So what we find is you have a lot of people that would just simply say, oh, because you have a business, you can solve my problems. Now, I will tell you this. 80% of all your problems can be solved with money. 80% of anyone's problems can be solved with money. But I also want you to understand that an increase in cash flow does not solve your problems. Solving your problems increase your cash flow. Understand what I'm saying? I'll say that again. You know, some of us didn't go to school. Some of us went to school on Sundays when we went to Sunday school. So increasing your cash flow does not solve your problems. Solving your problems increases your cash flow. So though money, 80% of our problems can be solved with money, many times those problems will resurface simply because we didn't solve the root to the problem. So money can solve the effects, but not necessarily always the cause. You know what I'm saying? So I want you to really just keep that in mind. But we have individuals that will show up, well, not show up because we know them, family and friends, they've been around, and they would look at you as a solution to the problems because of this business that you have. And you got to really think about it and consider that. You will be seen as an asset in their sphere, right? I think on one of my other episodes I spoke about levels and circles. If you haven't, if you don't know what I'm talking about, levels and circles, go check out all my other episodes and you'll get exposure to exactly what I'm talking about. But when you have people in your circle that should not be on your level, they will not be functioning in like a reciprocal or congruent manner that you operate in. So their problems often becomes your problems in their minds, right? So whatever they got going on, let's just say bills, you know, they got some bills issues, car trouble, all this kind of stuff. They're going to look to you because you're the person in business. So that's the first thing you really got to understand. The next thing is bandwidth. So we only have 24 hours in a day. That's it. Doesn't matter what other issues we have. It doesn't matter what other things we add into our lives, and so many other things are being added into our lives. So you know how to pitch it. Download this app so you can be notified. And now you realize you got 40 apps on your phone, excuse me, that's now notifying you about a whole bunch of different things. So now you almost know too much, right? That's just like me scraping the surface when it comes to bandwidth. That's just one of the few smaller things. But your bandwidth gets affected when you're in business. You have a lot of things to do, especially when you're starting from ground up. You're playing the roles of so many things. So let's just say you were a chef at a restaurant. You're a great chef, so someone encouraged you to start a restaurant. Well, you go into the restaurant, and now you own the restaurant, and you're a chef until you can get marketing people, till you get operations. You know, you may start off with a host, you may start a hostess or host, you may start off with servers, but it really just depends on what level you start off at will be how many positions you wind up holding. You may be holding so many positions, and then this commitment to this business, I always equate it to a baby. I talk about that a lot of times, that if you're not in the position where you feel you can raise another child, do not start a business, because starting a business is like raising a baby. It requires your full attention to move that child through their formative years, infancy, childhood, formative years up to about 9. Now they can finally make their own peanut butter and jelly sandwich. You don't have to get up and cook every meal. Then finally they can put their own shoes on, tie their laces. Now they can finally take their own bath. You got to build that child to that certain point. Now when they hit 18, they still require your assistance even up until they're 30, 35, until they gain enough life experience for them to really start to function on their own. And then eventually how life would, should be designed is there's a certain point that a child should reach where they're no longer necessarily dependent on the parent. Now they become a resource to the parent. Now they can turn around and take care of the parent. That's how it should be when we have our senior citizens. They should be getting taken care of by their kids or their grandkids. Too often in our community, that dysfunction kicks in, right? Where I think I heard someone say lately, they said if you raise your children, you can spoil your grandchildren, but when you spoil your children, you wind up having to raise your grandchildren. So that often happens in our community because we didn't put in the right energy in that child through their formative years to make sure that they become a productive, whole human being that they can in turn at some point turn around and be an asset or a resource to you. That's how it is in business. You don't just start the business and automatically it becomes an asset to you. You start the business and then you got to grow that business. You got to fill all these positions. And in that time that you're doing that, it's like you're a new parent all over again. You don't have much time. You can't be going to the clubs. You can't be having the level of socializing that you had. There's so many things that wind up being sacrificed because you have this new baby. Understand that that's the idea of being in business. You have to raise your business up from its infancy. that bandwidth is going to be affected. Now, depending on the type of life you had before with your friends and family, they may often feel offended or bothered that you no longer have the time. I mean, you got some family and friends that are bothered because you got married, because you fell in love. Now they're mad at you. They're mad at you because you fell in love. They mad at you because you fell in. Do you understand how dysfunctional we are as black people? They mad at you because you fell in love, and you no longer have time to invest in them, to give them a ride to work every day, or pick them up, or they can no longer be crashing on your couch or hanging out on the weekends because you fell in love. So you fell in love and they fell in hate, or they fell in resentment. Anyway, I need counseling, but this is just my little side piece. I just wanted to vent out to my viewers for a second. But that is a thing that really happens. You get your limited bandwidth, and now that limited bandwidth becomes somewhat of a negative impact to family and friends. If you have healthy relationships around you, you won't have to worry about that, right? And that takes me to our next point. Sacrifice of the old relationship. When you look at moving through being a business person, now there are different roles you play in business, right? And the most common is the beginning stages, which is entrepreneur and business owner. Entrepreneur is really a mindset. It's a belief. It's an approach. It's behaviors of doing certain activities that gives you economic gain. That's pretty much what an entrepreneur is. When you start having those behaviors, that's not always the stage that gives a lot of impact negatively when it comes to sacrificing the relationship, because entrepreneurs, we often aren't maybe necessarily business owners that require structure. You have entrepreneurs that are not held to the structure of what a baby might produce, right? You could be an entrepreneur, you have a full-time job, you're doing this stuff on the side, you can still kind of get through. But that entrepreneur behavior may not bring the relationships that you had prior into jeopardy. Now, as a business owner, it might, because if you own an actual business that requires you to be at a certain place at a certain time for a certain length of time, that requires like structure and an adjustment to your current schedule or just lifestyle, right? So then you have individuals that may look at it like, you know, you're not able to do the certain things. Again, like I spoke about before with bandwidth, they may look at it like, well, you can't do certain things. Now they start to have issues. And this stuff that I'm going through really only affects individuals who are transitioning, like I said. So you didn't come out of the womb. You wasn't born into like a family of wealth and business ownership and stuff like that. When that happens, people that are born into that space, I like to use the Wayans family as an example. They're all on the same page. They may have had challenges when they were born, but they all came together and built an empire together, right? You were not like this. None of them were like this outlier, right? That someone just broke out of the family norm or the family heritage and started doing something else and found a level of success that typically their family generationally was not able to attain. When you have that you're born into that, it makes it a whole lot easier. So finding generational wealth in those situations, it's almost like guaranteed, right? So you got the Hiltons, you know, the Rockefellers, and just all these different families that once everything was established, but it took that one person. It took that person to shift the trajectory of the entire heritage of the family, to then put them on a different vein, and then the subsequent generations were born into that, and then it makes it a lot easier. Why am I saying that? Because it's also about environment. So if you were born and raised into modest family, you're typically around other modest families. You typically you're born in poverty, then you're around other people in poverty. You're around other people that are similar to who you are. So when that happens, if you break out to change who you are and find a high level of success, you got to think about that your life was already established with these types of people around. Your parents had you in these environments. You were going to school in these environments. Your whole social life was built on these environments. So then you have people that have that same mindset. That's what makes it difficult in what I'm saying. When it's time for you to transition to the next level, you're going to be looking around at these people, and they're going to look at you like you're an alien. Like you were abducted by aliens and then taken away for a while and brought back, and now you're acting strange. This is the way they're going to see it, right? So they're looking at you that you're strange, and then there are other things that you got to do, which I'll get into, here in a second, in order to really get to this certain level and stay there. That transition becomes very, very difficult. So if you have a family that was born into successful spaces, they're going to the successful, they live in a successful neighborhood, and then you got to understand this, it's all connected, right? How much money you make determines where you live. Where you live determines where your kids go to school. Where your kids go to school determines the level of education they have, or the level of opportunities they're exposed to. The type of job or opportunities they're able to capitalize on is based on those exact opportunities. So it really all starts with you, the level of success you have, and the environment you're then able to plant your family and allow your kids to come up in. So all of that makes it very, very difficult now when you're looking at the old relationships that were already established based on the lifestyle you already had. So now that's your lifestyle, and then you're trying to change it. And those people, you have to then look at it, right? You have to look at, like I said earlier, when you're talking about going into business, you really have to stop and say, can you fulfill that journey? Is it really worth it? Can you handle estrangement from friends and family? Can you really take it to the next level? Which brings me to the next point. You have to die to your old self. Now, my first book, Changing Your Mind 1 Degree at a Time, is a personal journey on me transitioning my whole being. There were certain things that I had to challenge on that journey of 6 months that I took. I took 6 months off from life, and I spent 180 days, and I titled it the 180-day theory. In the beginning, it was the subtitle, because what I was attempting to do was turn 1 degree per day, and at the end of those 180 days, I would have been going in an opposite direction, 180 degrees. That book contains information, and it's a personal journey. Like I said, it's not just a book, it's like a blueprint or a roadmap. I covered social, which was my social circle, developmental, financial, economical, relational. I look at all these, I don't know if I said developmental, but I looked at all these different things, and I said, I need to challenge them. So it was forget what I learned. So I told myself, I'm going to dump everything that I learned. Because, when a child is born, they're a blank canvas for the most part. And parents and people around them are painting on that canvas. That child is being exposed. That child does not really have taste yet. We're conditioning that child on what foods they should like, right? Because we're exposing them to certain foods. A child across the world in a different country, their taste buds are conditioned to different types of food. So it's us. We're teaching them pretty much what to like, what fashion is good, What standards are acceptable in society? We are the ones that's painting on that canvas. And I had to stop and say, okay, was my canvas painted on properly? And that's what I challenged myself with. And I would challenge you to do the same thing. To sit back and say, I need to take a good look at my life and see if all the programming that I have is conducive to where I would like to go in life. Because we got so many people talk about it. If you walk up to the average person in the streets and say, hey, I want to give you $2 million, would you take it? We're all going to take it. We all just don't want to take what it takes to get there, to get the $2 million. We don't want to accept the work that it takes, or the commitment that it takes, or the sacrifice that it takes. But we would take the reward, the end of the day reward. We would take it. That's part of our issue, because we do not want to die to self. So we want to keep holding on to the things that we've learned, who we are, what we believe, what feels good, what's comfortable, and still expect that if we start this business, that we should be able to take all that we are already and this business will just automatically be successful. Now, I'm not saying you have horrible parents. I'm not saying you have a horrible family, and I'm not saying you have horrible friends. What I'm saying is challenge it. What I'm saying is look at your habits that you have, these 24 hours that you're blessed with every day, and look at what you normally do and see if it's really taking you closer to a world of a successful business owner or entrepreneur, or is it taking you further away from it? Or it's just having you running in place like a treadmill. You have to really stop and be willing to look at yourself and divest some of those habits or ideals that you may have been practicing for so many years. So dying to self is really the next thing that you really need to look at. Next thing, the decision to retreat. Now, I can tell you that this is Plato said that the biggest battle is to conquer self. When it comes to us, like really trying to journey to the next level or transition from one place to the next, it requires so much challenging of ourselves that it becomes uncomfortable. Now, I'm going to tell you, you got to get comfortable with discomfort. That is the whole essence of entrepreneurship or business ownership. Being comfortable with discomfort. It is going to come. The pressure, the stress, the criticism, the embarrassment, fear, it all shows up to the doorsteps of an entrepreneur. And if you're doing it right and you're doing a good job of it, more of it will show up. It's going to be compounded. So what happens there is you become tempted to quit and retreat. Now, you know, I tell people, listen, let me explain something to you. I talk about levels and circles. So let me kind of sidebar for a second. There is a person for there's a person on every level for the people that you have in your life right now. Follow me on this. If you have that person in your life that's funny, that's smart, that acts as a mentor, that gives you good counsel, whatever, whoever they are, those types of people also exist up here on the next level. They exist here too. And those types of people exist here too. They're at every socioeconomic level. So while we're sitting in certain places and we refuse to let go of certain relationships because we may feel a void, that can be keeping us in a certain place. So we think about romantic relationships. You decide to stay in this romantic relationship. It's abusive, but there's some good pieces that keeps you there, but you know it's really not that good for you, but you're afraid of being alone, and then you wind up staying there, and then you're stuck, and then next thing you know, 60 years go by, and the person died, and now you feel free, and you wish you had done it before or whatever. You just didn't have the strength or the gall to step up and shed that relationship, that's what also strickens us, oppresses us, stagnates us, or enslaves us as entrepreneurs. Because what happens is you're trying to go to the next level, but then you have people around you that are not willing, but then they're not willing to support you going to the next level. And then you're also faced with the fear of loss, or the feeling of loneliness, that kind of stuff. But I'm going to tell you, in order to go to the next level, you just have to, right? So you could find yourself lonely, you could find yourself taking risks, but the man who tries and fails is wealthier than the man that never tried. So you want to make sure that you take those chances and then embrace those lessons that is masked as failure. Because if you start a business and you quote unquote fail, you have gotten more knowledge, lessons, wisdom than the person sitting on their porch that never did it in the first place. But the person on the porch who never did it has found a way. Let me tell you something. The more ignorant people, we're letting them dominate society. They're showing up with horrible music, horrible podcasts, horrible TV shows, horrible parenting. They're showing up with very horrible attributes. And they bully the good people into being quiet, into not taking a chance, into not stepping forward. So then what happens is you, quote unquote, failing at something comes across as you failed. And then the person who's sitting on the porch is going to make jokes on you and bully you and make you feel like you did something so horrible. Like, I try to talk about the female athletes, the black female athletes, that we are so what's the right word to be politically correct on this thing? We are so dirty or ignorant that we would have the nerves to say stuff like Gabby Douglas didn't have her hair done, or Simone Biles did XYZ, you fill in the blank, or what's her name, the girl I ran that she didn't get the Olympic team. Producer, help me. And Richardson, yeah, Richardson. I was going to name her Robinson because, you know, we successful people, you know what I'm saying? Richardson. She lost the race, didn't get to compete because weed was in her system. And us black people have all this to say as we're typing at home on a laptop or scrolling on our phone, and never got any types of medals in our lives. We never even got a participation medal. Because you know they give those out now too, right? But you got to make the team. You got to be willing to put your skills in front of a stage. We don't even get those. But we got the nerves to sit up and bully people who tried. Bully our own people who's out there trying to make things happen. You know how simple that is in our minds? And what happens is, let me tell you something. The smart people, we got to learn how to Jones people. We got to learn how to make jokes, man. But then if the successful people make jokes at the unsuccessful people, we're horrible, right? The rich better not say anything about the poor whatsoever, because then we're horrible. But then we got the people who are not successful, who don't even try, or who got all the bad ideals about themselves, bully people who try into not trying anymore. I can't tell you the countless number of people just growing up, seeing it in society. They got these skills, and then they got bullied by a gang, or they got beat up by let me tell you something, me touch any one of my kids, we going to war. And that's the type of parents I shouldn't be saying that. That's irresponsible. Help me out. That's irresponsible. What I'm saying is, you got kids and bullies out here that go after the kids that are trying to do something good with their lives. You know what I'm saying? And we got to find a way to bash their head in. Can I say that? I don't know if I should say that. Well, we should bash their head in. Should we bash their head in? or maybe, or make jokes at them. Does that work? I don't know. But we got a lot of kids that are willing to try, and they are great kids in the foundation of themselves, and then all of a sudden wind up in these gangs, wind up throwing away their skills and talents because they're being bullied by the dark side. And the bright side, we do nothing. I'm gonna move off away from that because y'all ain't following me now. Y'all want to tune out and unsubscribe to my podcast because now y'all thinking I'm talking really evil stuff. But I'll just get back to it. So the bullies then make us retreat away from what it is we were trying to do in the first place, and then we wind up sitting on the corners as well. I've seen it. I've seen it growing up. I've been at the other end of bullying growing up, but I'm pretty good at telling jokes at people, so I would clap back, as they say, or get back at them, and you just gotta stand up for yourself and do the good. Those are the types of things you face as an entrepreneur, and you're not gonna just face this from strangers in the streets. You face this from the people right next to you. You be sleeping with the enemy. You think you got a wife and you got strife. You really think you got something, you don't have it. Which leads me to my next point. The next one is be undeterred. One of my favorite movies of all time, next to Harlem Nights and Belly. I'm a little ghetto, I know. I'm a little, I ain't all the way clean, you know what I'm saying? Because I like Belly. Harlem Nights, Belly's my top two. I know people like to use the politically correct, coming to America and those kind of stuff, but nah, I like the stories of. Anyway, I'm gonna tell you the stories, but one of my favorite movies of all time. Keep me on track, people. One of my favorite movies of all time is Book of Eli. Have you seen the Book of Eli? It's a movie with Denzel Washington when apparently Armageddon hit the world and he was blind and he knew that he needed to get east. And on his journey, they were the evil dark side of people. There were pockets of tribes of predators that were robbing and pillaging and all this good stuff. And they were, getting rid of all the books in society because as you know, illiteracy also keeps you unsuccessful. So they understood that to keep people oppressed, we got to get rid of all the books. But Denzel Washington had the Bible memorized in his mind. So to restart civilization, and they were all looking for the Bible. Not him, but the predators of these evil pods of people were looking for the Bible. And it was this whole thing about this movie. This movie has so many metaphors and tongue-in-cheek and multiple meanings in it that I really would suggest that you guys watch this movie and commit it to like part of your behavior mechanism as an entrepreneur. He was faced with temptation. He was faced with challenges, confrontation. He had a knife. I think it was a knife or a sword. It was just a big knife. And he would cut your hand off in 2 seconds if you mess with him, because he meant he was going east. And they bribed him with everything. Some of the people that he ran into, I guess, wound up being his the nemesis of the movie. I forgot this actor's name. He's one of those actors that you know his face if you see him, but he has no name or nothing you could attach him to, but you know the face. He was in the movie. I think Mila Kunis was in the movie too. Is that how you say her name? But I think she was also in the movie, and she joined and kind of assisted him because he saved her at one point in the movie. A great movie. But the movie really illustrated, just on the macro side of things, to be undeterred. No matter what you're faced with, right? You may be tempted as well. Let me tell you something. The best way to control someone is to pay them. That's one of the best ways to get people to forget what it is, what journey they were on, or the things they were trying to do. Now, of course, everybody got to get paid, but you need to make sure that that pay does not come with a price, which is the purchase of your goals or the purchase of the thing that you're trying to do. You can get paid along the way. It should fit your lifestyle. It should fit the things that you're trying to do. And sometimes what you should be doing is joining forces with some, some teams that pay is also contributing to the goals that you may have. Because not everyone will have the goals or should have the goals of being an entrepreneur, business person, because everyone's not built for it, right? But that movie really speaks about being undeterred and going where you need to go. And that's what we need to do as entrepreneurs and business people. We really need to be like able to go no matter what obstacles come in our way. Love should not distract you from your goals. Trauma should not distract you from your goals. Being paid should not distract you from your goals. None of those things should distract you from your goals. And I know it is very hard to just say it, because the way I'm saying it is almost like it's in theory, right? A counselor can tell you anything, but to actually walk it out and do it, it's a whole different story. Trauma can really shift a person's whole trajectory in life. But sometimes those things are tests to try to throw us off of where we're trying to go. And we really need to make sure that we're undeterred. And the next thing is expect requests. It is going to happen. Now, there are some personalities of people that don't know how to say no. And if you don't know how to say no, you will never be successful. Because we're constantly wanting to appease and accommodate other people. And sometimes these people that we're trying to appease and accommodate are the antithesis to our success. They are actually moving us in the wrong direction the more we accommodate and appease them, versus propelling us to that direction. This happens, family and friends. This happens. Like I said earlier, you inherit problems because you inherit theirs. You become one of their resources now. You also should expect requests. So what do you do in the event of expecting requests? You have to learn. I mean, I'm saying it because there's no emotional tie to it. I'm just saying say no. But it's not that easy for everybody to just say no anytime someone has a request, because sometimes those requests comes as our little cuddly kids. Our little kids can be something that throws us off from where we need to be going. You, as an entrepreneur, business person, must be able to manage your journey properly. That's just how it goes. You're gonna have to understand when it's time to say no. So those requests are gonna show up. They're gonna come, and you gotta really determine if they're gonna be healthy requests, if they're requests that's gonna set you back or set you up. You gotta really determine where it is those requests are gonna take you. The next one is you got to lower your expectations. What does that mean? You need to lower your expectations of your friends and family on your journey to success. As I'm going to tell you, like, you would really think that your friends and family would be supportive of whatever it is you're trying to accomplish in life that's good for you. That's really not the case. Everyone has their likes, dislikes, biases, the whole nine. And I'll be quite frank with you. You get rich off of strangers, not friends. Friends are not the ones, or family is not the ones that you should expect. You should not go into business, start an entire business because because everybody knows you at church. Those are not the people that's going to take your business to the next level on a repeat. Now, this is more of a cultural thing with us, right? We will dip our toes in the water. We may support you once or twice here and there. But really, to go to the next level typically happens from the people that are not very familiar with who you were yesterday. Because who you were yesterday, they get to see your transition. They get to see you going to the next level. And many times they're not supportive of that. Again, I'm not saying that this is everyone all the time, all things. I'm just trying to prepare you for the type of relationships that you can expect to be having as you're journeying in business. So you're going to have to lower your expectations. I'll give you an example, like what you should test. This is one of the tests that I tell my students they should perform. Go on social media, post a picture of yourself, see how many likes, comments, all that stuff that you get. Maybe a funny picture of yourself. Then post about you getting a new job. Then post an accomplishment, and you want to do this once a week. So it's like a couple weeks test that you're doing, right? And you start looking at, and then the last post you want to post is your business, your product, support you, and you can then look and see the difference. This difference in the amount of people that like, comment, share, it kind of gives you an idea of how these people view you or what they're willing to support. They silently tell on themselves. Like, you don't have to ask them, because they'll say whatever it is to make you feel good. If you tell them, if I open a bakery, would you buy cupcakes from me? Of course I would. Of course I would. That's what they would say. But then when you do it, you'll get to really see who would support you. I've sold tens of thousands of copies of my books, and those were primarily from people that I never met. That's kind of the norm. But you know, in the beginning stages of entrepreneurship and business, that thing will hurt you. You will kind of be sitting back like, well, what's the problem? No, that's why I'm prepping you now. Do not let that get you hung up, and do not have the expectation that because you have 5,000 friends on Facebook, you're going to get 5,000 supporters from your business, or 4,000, or 3,000, or 2,000, or 1,000. You barely would even have 500. If you get 500 out of 5,000, you're doing really good, because that's 10%. You may get 50, maybe 1% of the people that really support you and support your business. So you really want to lower your expectations. The next thing you want to do when it comes to, your journey in business and managing friends and family and relationships is fix your circle. You want to fix your circle. What do I mean by that? You want to release, cut, draft, and bench. Release, cut, draft, and bench your people based on who are going to add to your journey versus who's taken away from your journey. You need to release them from their contract, cut them from the team. You want to draft new people onto your team, or you want to bench people from the game. So what happens is these people would now be repositioned to certain spaces in your life. Now, saying this, just me saying it out loud, it kind of sounds bad. It kind of sounds like, oh, this was your friend for 20 years, 30 years, and you're just gonna stop, being as close to them, or not letting them know everything that's going on in your life anymore. And yes. Sí, señor. Yes, I would do that. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Because just like you're changing over time, they say that people change every 7 years. We evolve into another person every 7 years. The same way they have. You may be going in a different direction from that person. But because of this thing called titles, we get so hung up, and we would destroy this one life that God has blessed us with. You're going to be 15 once. You're going to be 25 once. You're going to be 30. Tell me somebody who was 35 twice. I mean, if you tell me the secret, then I change everything I just said. We are who we are once. We got one opportunity to make certain things happen in our lives. We don't have multiple opportunities. So if you're willing to take this one linear life that you have from 0 to whenever, and let me tell you something, God is he's a real trip, because he doesn't tell us when that whenever is. Like, do you guys I want you guys to meditate on that for a second. That's a real point right there. Like, we don't know when the end is of our lives. Forget everybody else's lives. We don't know when our end is. So while you're living your life, you would think, because they say life expectancy, I think it's like 78 years now. Your life expectancy, that's what we expect. But I just told you before, lower your expectations. Were you listening? Lower your expectations. It's not the same expectations anymore, because things happen. There are traumatic things that happen in our lives, accidents, illnesses, many things happen to us that should give us a different, unique perspective of our own lives. So you got to say, okay, the beginning is known. That's barely known, because they say 9 months. Some of us pop out early. Some of us pop out late. Life itself is not in a box. Everyone does not have the same life. Everyone does not have the same time to do certain things. You should not take the days that you don't know is left and attach that to a dysfunctional situation that gives you a less than decent quality life. I want you to really think about that. Like, you should not allow titles. We got mammy, we got pappy, we got sister girl, we got cousins, we got brothers and sisters and auntie and uncle. We have all these titles that are in our families. And then we have friends. We got best friends, BFFs, and we got all this stuff. And we attach these titles to it. And then we behave based on the title versus behaving based on the relationship. We behave based on the title versus behaving based on the relationship. So then we allow the titles, because again, if we're changing every 7 years, we got people in our circle who may be on crack, and their behavior on crack is not the behavior of someone trying to grow a bakery. They don't go together. Like, they don't go together. But because that person's title is that, we tend to be committed to it, and it really takes us down the road that we don't need to be going. So you got to fix your circle. One of the things you got to do is really fix your circle. Look at your circle, see who needs to be there, who needs to be arranged, who needs to be engaged with more, who needs to be engaged with less, who no longer needs to know where you live, who's okay to know where you live, who may not need to know ideas that you have, who can know ideas you have, who you can partner with. And that's sketchy. That's a very sketchy one. Or who shouldn't partner with you. You got to rearrange that circle to make sure that you're going to the next level. And the final point that you want to practice on your journey in business and relationships and stuff is you want to put intentions over emotions. Put intentions over emotions. Basically saying your decision should be based on where you're trying to be versus what feels good. Because, you know, when you're sick and you feel bad and you go to the doctor, you need surgery or whatever, right after surgery feels bad. But once you recover, once you make it through therapy, once you get to the next stage, you're going to feel way better than you did before you got sick. So when you have a journey that you're trying to be on in life, you want to really stick to that versus what emotionally feels good. Because in many cases, what's good to you isn't good for you. So you have to make sure that your emotions are rearranged properly and not fed into and used to make those decisions. In most of your decisions, you need to use logic, your head over your heart, because our heart is often fleeting. It gives us a feeling now. 1 minute we hungry, 1 minute we not. 1 minute we want this to eat, 1 minute we don't. Those types of things are fleeting. So you want to make sure that the decisions you're making adds to the overall picture for you to go to the next level. And that, my friends, are the 10 things that you really want to focus on, and that should assist you in your journey with relationships and friends when it comes to business. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Make sure you comment. Let us know what you think about this episode. And I'll see you next time. I'm Professor Devin Robinson. This is Classes in Session. And don't forget to outgrow your yesterdays.